Guys, we got an urgent video to talk about. Of course, NIO's numbers has fallen down to 3,000 last week. Insurance registrations, that is below Zeekr's 5,700, below Xpeng's 3,600. And actually, ArcFox, which, we all kind of thought that brand was going to die out, they delivered 2,200. So it's actually catching up to NIO. What's going on? How come such a big fall from like 4,000-ish down to 3,000? And what can we expect going forward? And also, obviously, early pre-market and overall in the Hong Kong market as well, NIO has taken a hit. The stock price has decreased substantially, 5+%. At the peak of the drop, it was at 7% down on the day. So we are breaking below the head and shoulders pattern, confirming that pattern. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But for now, at the moment, here in China, NIO has said that they've moved back incentives and they're really focusing on a strategy where NIO is more about premium, luxuriousness, high margin, whereas with Envo, it's more for pursuing the numbers. But clearly, we haven't seen Envo ramp up to the extent where it can be on the list. So it's still not above 2,000 insurance registrations per week for Envo. So that's still going to take some time before that shows up. But here in China, like, you're still seeing quite a lot of incentives. And recently, NIO actually expanded their charging / swapping subsidy incentive to buy a car. So the incentive was if you order the car after I think it was October like 11th or something, you can get up to 3,000 RMB or up to $500 of free charging or free swapping, along with the swap vouchers and all that kind of other stuff. So that really meant that in about for if you buy a NIO, in about 1 or 2 years, you don't have to spend any money on charging or swapping if you drive your car conservatively. Okay, so they recently expanded that incentive, meaning that they're continuing it. It used to be 600 million in that subsidy RMB, but now they're making it 1 billion, all right, RMB, meaning that they're allocating that much money into this subsidy, into this incentive to further boost sales, so to speak. And of course, it's not like the balance sheet is going to take a hit with that straight away. It's more like gradually over time. Every time you charge or swap, it's only going to charge you 1 RMB, which is like 20 cents or 15 cents for your charging or your swapping bill. So it's not going to take an immediate hit. It's more like over time, right? They're not going to realize certain amounts of revenue from charging and swapping. So that's still there. And then, of course, there's still a lot of incentives for trade-in program, right? They still have a trade-in program going on. And there's still a lot of local subsidies with different cities where if you trade in a gasoline car for EV, you still get a big incentive. And some places, they also have a direct EV subsidy. So you add all these together, there's still like a big amount of subsidy for people to incentivize to buy a NIO. So if it's not really the subsidy issue or incentive issue, what's going on? Could it be possibly demand? And of course, we have to talk about why that might be the case, because recently NIO has gotten into severe turmoil with the fact that DCAR tested the ET5T and gave it a poor performance, which I obviously don't agree with. Nobody at NIO agrees with. All the NIO owners don't agree with. And it's a very odd test where I've shared about it. They ran the car under a truck, and then basically with that test, the lower the car, the better your performance. Like the Model 3, they tested the Model 3 instead of the Model Y, which is odd. But the Model 3 was able to go and hit the tires before the A-pillars took the impact from the truck. So it's a very odd test. The lower the car, the better the performance. Even like $1 million G-Wagons and stuff perform poorly because of the height. And then also I guess the 40% collision and causing some airbag fire, and also the door handles not popping up, that kind of caused a little bit of bad publicity in general. So of course NIO was striking back, and of course reassuring consumers that that test is, they don't agree with that test, and NIO safety 5-star Euro NCAP safety, that's not just for show, it's an actuality, it's the real deal. But I would be lying to you if I said that that test did not have an impact on consumer demand. Right? Of course, it had an impact on consumer demand. Right? People saying that that NIO ET5T performed badly in that test. Of course, it's going to have some impact. All right, it's hard to say how much, but it's going to get some people who are on the fence about getting the car to maybe not pull the trigger. So that's, of course, one thing to keep in mind. And, of course, ET5T being one of NIO's volume drivers, right? The ES6 sells the most, and then the ET5T sells the second most. To have that car be under that amount of scrutiny and I guess scandal, so to speak, that does not help NIO for sure. So hopefully they can find a way to reassure customers about the safety of ET5T, and hopefully they can do their own crash test maybe, and then to invalidate the car's crash test. So do the same test, but under your own conditions. All right, under your own conditions, to reassure consumers that the door handles do indeed pop out. And speaking of that, it seemed like the ET7 crash that I reported on yesterday, the door handles appeared not to have popped up, so that definitely does not help with this whole door handle popping up during a crash situation. But hopefully they can invalidate those tests, and hopefully they can do their own crash test and really tell the car that what you're doing is not correct, man. Yeah, but going forward, really, the deliveries, we have to look at Envo. Envo is really the saving grace for NIO right now, and I suppose going forward, if Envo ramps up quick enough, that's really going to make up for the lost ground from NIO. So I'm still pretty confident that we can probably achieve 20,000 deliveries per month going forward, but the makeup is definitely going to be more Envo and less NIO going forward. But let's talk about the Head and Shoulders NIO early pre-market trading below $5 per share. And that sort of confirms that Head and Shoulders pattern, signaling, indicating that perhaps we might get lower prices to come. And if we do get indeed get lower prices to come, of course, that's a better buying opportunity, because if you think about it, still long term, deliveries are very short and temporary, like short-term thinking. If you look long-term, NIO is still on the right track. They're still doing the right things. You still have the Firefly brand coming out that's going to sell a lot of cars. Envo still hasn't ramped up to full capacity. You're going to see that in January. So even though it sucks to see the stock red, especially when you see Tesla flying like crazy, I'm still bullish long-term. I'm still bullish long-term. And if it falls more, it's just a bigger opportunity to buy, in my personal opinion. Not financial advice, all right? So take it for what it's worth, but we could be looking at more downside with NIO stock, possibly with the Head and Shoulders, okay? As always, stay safe, stay healthy. Peace out.